Ladies and gentlemen, today, let's talk about a skill that few speak of, yet it's one of the most powerful abilities you can ever develop: the art of keeping things to yourself. In a world that glorifies oversharing and instant updates, silence has become rare, but it is golden. Whether it's your dreams, your plans, your relationships, or your personal battles, not everything deserves an audience. The most successful people understand that privacy is power. Think about it. When you constantly speak of your goals, you create an illusion of progress. But real growth happens in the quiet, in the discipline, in the action, in the sacrifice. What you protect grows. What you expose too soon weakens. Every time you open your mouth, you give away your energy. You invite judgment, jealousy, and even interference. When you speak less, you listen more. You observe more. You think deeply. You protect your peace. This doesn't mean hiding yourself from the world. It means choosing wisely what you share, with whom, and when. You don't have to explain your every move. Let your success make the noise. You don't need validation from others. Trust your journey. You don't need to defend your decisions. Let time prove you right. So master this art. Keep your power. Guard your silence. Because in that silence is your strength. In a world that thrives on constant sharing, social media updates, public check-ins, endless conversations about future plans, privacy often feels like a forgotten art. But those who understand the real value of personal power know that keeping things to yourself isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When you choose to keep aspects of your life private, you are taking control of your energy, your intentions, and your peace of mind. Privacy gives you freedom, not just from others' opinions, but from the pressure to perform, explain, or justify every step you take. It allows you to live for yourself and not for the applause or validation of others. Every time you overshare, you dilute your power. People start forming opinions, asking questions, giving unsolicited advice, and even wishing ill on your progress, often unconsciously. That energy can distract, discourage, or even derail you. But when you stay silent and move strategically, you preserve the purity of your intention. You protect your dreams from outside influence. You give yourself the space to grow without interruption. Think of it like this: a seed doesn't need the whole world to know it's been planted. It just needs the right environment, darkness, stillness, nourishment to take root and flourish. Your dreams are no different. They need protection in the early stages. When you keep your goals and struggles private, you shield them from noise and negativity. That's how you build quietly and strongly. Privacy also teaches you emotional discipline. It builds inner strength. You learn to be okay with being misunderstood, with not being seen or heard all the time. And that makes you more resilient. You stop depending on outside voices and start trusting your inner compass. In every area of life, whether it's business plans, personal relationships, financial goals, or spiritual growth, privacy empowers you to act with clarity and confidence. It eliminates distractions, it builds mystery, it invites respect, and above all, it lets you be the author of your own story without letting others write parts of it for you. One of the most subtle yet damaging habits we develop, often unknowingly, is the tendency to overshare. We speak too soon, reveal too much, and involve too many people in our thoughts, plans, relationships, and emotions. And in doing so, we unknowingly open the floodgates to opinions that are neither needed nor helpful. You see, not everyone you share your life with is qualified to guide you. And not every listener is a well-wisher. Some listen only to judge. Some listen to compare. Some listen so they can gossip. And some listen just to disagree. Not because they understand you, but because they need to project their own fears or failures onto your path. When you constantly share your goals, for example, You start attracting advice that's rooted not in your purpose, but in someone else's limitations. You hear things like, "That's too risky," or "I knew someone who tried that and failed," or "Why don't you take a safer route?" And if you're not strong enough in your mindset, those voices can plant doubt, slow you down, or even change your direction entirely. Similarly, when you share personal matters, relationships, conflicts, or emotional struggles with the wrong people, you make space for unnecessary noise. People begin to analyze your situation from the outside, without context or compassion. Some may offer toxic advice. Others might pretend to care while secretly hoping for your downfall. Even when the intentions are good, too many opinions create confusion. They can distort your own thinking and make you question your judgment. Oversharing also exposes you to expectation and pressure. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, people start watching. Some cheer you on, but others silently wait for you to fail. The weight of those expectations can make you anxious, hesitant, or even force you to perform for the sake of appearances, not progress. It shifts your focus from doing things right to doing things publicly. And there's another layer. Oversharing weakens the sacredness of your inner world. Your dreams, your ideas, your emotions, they are sacred. The moment you put them out in the open without protection, they lose their sacredness. They become public property. People feel entitled to comment, to critique, to dissect, to question. And often, you're left defending yourself for things that were never meant to be debated in the first place. By sharing too soon or too often, you give people access to your vulnerabilities before you've had the chance to understand and process them yourself. That's like opening a wound in front of strangers and expecting comfort. Instead, you might get salt. So remember, it's not about being secretive. It's about being selective. Just because something is true doesn't mean it has to be told. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it has to be broadcast. Your life is not an open forum, and you don't owe explanations to everyone. In a world that's obsessed with talking, posting, and constantly updating others about what we're going to do, one truth still remains undefeated. Action always speaks louder than words. It's easy to talk. Talking requires no discipline, no consistency, no risk. You can say you'll start a business. You can say you're going to change your life. You can say you're working on yourself. And people might applaud you just for the declaration. But saying it isn't doing it. And the truth is, many people fall in love with talking about change rather than committing to it. When you speak too much about what you intend to do, you trick your brain into feeling like you've already made progress. This psychological phenomenon is called social reality, where you gain a false sense of accomplishment simply because you've been praised or acknowledged for your intention, not your execution. That false high often kills momentum. Instead of working, you start performing. Instead of building quietly, you become consumed with maintaining an image of productivity. On the other hand, silent action carries power. When you move without announcement, you remove the pressure of outside validation. You focus on the work, not the recognition. You give yourself room to fail in private, to learn without judgment, and to grow at your own pace. That's how real transformation happens, behind the scenes, in the quiet, unseen moments. People respect results, not promises. You'll find that the loudest people in the room often have the least to show, while the truly successful are busy executing. They're not wasting energy convincing others of what they're doing. They're too focused on actually doing it. They don't need applause. They let their outcomes speak for them. Every goal, whether it's financial success, personal growth, a new relationship, or a healthier lifestyle, requires discipline, consistency, and focus. Words can't do that work for you. Posts can't replace practice. Likes can't replace learning. Only action can create change. And real action doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's messy. But it's always necessary. The most powerful statement you can make is silent progress. There is nothing more impactful than surprising the world with your results. When people look up and say, "Wait, when did they do all that?" That moment, when your growth is undeniable and your silence has matured into success, that's when your action echoes louder than any speech ever could. In a fast-paced world filled with noise, opinions, expectations, and constant digital engagement, one of the greatest forms of self-respect is learning to set boundaries. And when it comes to achieving true inner peace, boundaries are not just helpful, they are absolutely essential. Many people struggle with emotional exhaustion, stress, and mental confusion, not because life is inherently chaotic, but because they allow too many people into their mental and emotional space. They carry the weight of others' opinions, they absorb unnecessary drama, and they make themselves too available, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically, for people who do not deserve that access. Let's be clear. You are not a dumping ground for other people's emotions. You are not obligated to share every part of yourself with everyone. And most importantly, you do not owe unlimited access to your mind, your energy, or your story to the world. Keeping things to yourself, your dreams, your fears, your healing, your daily struggles, is not selfish. It's self-protection. When you don't have boundaries, you become emotionally vulnerable to the noise of the world. You begin to feel guilty for not replying fast enough, for not explaining your choices, for not justifying your silence. You feel obligated to update others on your progress or your problems, as if your life is up for public debate. That guilt drains you. That constant sharing fragments your peace. But when you draw healthy emotional lines and protect your space, you begin to experience something rare and powerful: clarity. You think clearer because there are fewer voices in your head. You feel calmer because you've distanced yourself from emotional chaos. You regain control over your time, your decisions, and your focus. And boundaries aren't only about what you don't share. They're also about who you allow into your circle. Not everyone deserves to know the details of your life. Some people just want information, not connection. Some ask questions not out of care, but out of curiosity or control. Some will use your vulnerability against you when the moment suits them. That's why discernment is key. Boundaries help you filter who gets to be close to your truth and who stays outside the walls. One of the greatest challenges in today's world, especially in the age of likes, shares, and instant feedback, is learning how to trust your own process without constantly looking over your shoulder for validation. We live in a society that celebrates external approval. From childhood, we're conditioned to look outward, for grades, for praise, for permission, for applause. And as adults, many carry that need into every aspect of life: career decisions, lifestyle choices, even personal healing. But here's the truth: your growth doesn't need to be seen to be real. Your journey doesn't have to be understood by others to be valuable. And your process doesn't require validation to be valid. Seeking validation can become a silent addiction. You post a goal, hoping for encouragement. You share a milestone, craving recognition. You explain a decision, hoping someone says, "Yes, you're doing the right thing." And when that validation doesn't come, or worse, when you receive criticism, your confidence begins to crumble. Your steps slow down. You begin to doubt yourself. You start adjusting your path, not to align with your inner truth, but to match the expectations of the audience you never needed in the first place. But when you truly trust your process, something powerful happens. You stop performing and start evolving. You realize that the deepest transformations happen when no one is watching. The best work you'll ever do is often done in the shadows, away from the spotlight, far from approval, in moments where the only voice you can hear is your own. And that voice needs to be nurtured, not silenced by the opinions of people who haven't walked a mile in your shoes. Validation may feel good in the short term, but it's a weak foundation for long-term purpose. It's unstable. It changes with trends, moods, biases, and social pressure. If you live for others' approval, you'll die a little inside every time they disapprove, misunderstand, or ignore you. But when you trust your process, you gain something more precious than applause: self-belief. Self-belief means continuing even when no one says, "Well done." It means staying disciplined even when no one notices. It means being your own source of motivation, rather than needing the constant emotional fuel of others' opinions. That kind of inner trust cannot be bought. It is built over time, through experience, and often through solitude. Not everyone will understand your timing, your pace, your priorities, or your reasons. And that's okay. They weren't given your vision. They don't carry your purpose. They don't bear your burdens. You are the one walking the path, and that makes your understanding of it enough. One of the most powerful truths you can ever embrace is this: your inner world is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. In fact, the more you grow, the more you'll realize that selectivity is not arrogance, it's emotional intelligence. Too often, people hand over pieces of their heart, fragments of their dreams, or glimpses of their soul to those who have no capacity, intention, or character to handle them with care. Whether it's through casual conversation, impulsive venting, or emotional oversharing, we sometimes give the most vulnerable parts of ourselves to people who haven't earned our trust. And in doing so, we risk misunderstanding, judgment, gossip, or even betrayal. Your inner world is made up of your deepest thoughts, your emotions, your visions, your traumas, your faith, your doubts, your healing, your aspirations. These aren't just random pieces of information. They are the very blueprint of who you are. To share that freely with everyone is to cheapen its value. You wouldn't leave your most valuable possessions unguarded in the street, so why would you expose your most personal truths to just anyone who asks? Some people only want to know your struggles out of curiosity, not compassion. Others pretend to care but are quietly collecting information to use against you later. Some just want to feel important by knowing what others don't. And many, sadly, are incapable of holding space for your pain or your growth because they haven't done the work on themselves. The harsh reality is this: just because someone listens doesn't mean they're safe. Just because someone asks doesn't mean you should answer. And just because someone is close to you, by blood, by years, by proximity, doesn't automatically qualify them to be invited into your innermost space. Emotional closeness must be earned, not assumed. This is why setting emotional boundaries is not cold. It's healthy. It protects the parts of you that are still healing. It guards your intentions before they're fully formed. It keeps the noise out while your mind and heart are doing the quiet work of becoming. And most importantly, it preserves your energy, because not every person, opinion, or conversation deserves to live rent-free in your head. Sharing is powerful, but only when it's safe, intentional, and aligned. When you share with the right person, someone who listens without judgment, someone who supports without trying to control, someone who understands without needing full explanation, that's when healing happens. That's when you grow in trust. But those people are rare, and you find them not by talking to everyone, but by listening to your own instincts. You owe it to yourself to protect your mental space like sacred ground. Let your heart be a garden with locked gates, not an open road for every passerby. Let your mind be a sanctuary, quiet, safe, and free from intrusions. There is a quiet power in those who don't need to prove themselves through words, attention, or constant self-promotion, because their results speak volumes. In a world filled with noise, ego, and endless declarations of intent, the person who moves in silence and lets their actions do the talking becomes a rare force, respected, unshakable, and focused. We live in an age where it's common to see people post every move they make. They announce their goals before they've taken the first step. They showcase every little progress as if it's the final outcome. They talk more about what's coming than what's actually been accomplished. And while some may call that ambition, the truth is, Constant self-display is often a sign of insecurity, not confidence. When you're truly grounded in your purpose, you don't need to advertise every step. You're too focused on the walk. There's a difference between building and performing. Building is private. It's gritty, consistent, and quiet. It's early mornings, late nights, sacrifices no one sees. It's falling and getting back up with no audience to clap or console you. It's sharpening your skills when no one is watching, and staying committed when no one is cheering. On the other hand, performing is loud. It seeks attention before it earns respect. It relies on image more than substance. But results? Results are undeniable. They don't need an introduction. They don't need a caption. They command respect without asking for it. When you walk into a room and your discipline, growth, success, or transformation is visible through what you've done, not just what you've said, people take notice. They may not have heard your plans, but they can't ignore your outcomes. Letting results speak for you also protects you from unnecessary criticism, pressure, and sabotage. The fewer people who know what you're building, the fewer distractions you'll face. The less you say, the less people can twist. And most importantly, when you don't announce every step, you free yourself from the burden of performing for an audience. You get to grow privately, fail privately, and evolve authentically. True power is quiet. The most effective individuals in any field, business, sports, art, or personal development, often speak the least about what they're doing. Instead, they pour that energy into doing. They stay low, stay consistent, and when they rise, there is no confusion. The results are loud enough to make the world listen. People will always have opinions. Some will doubt you, others will mimic you, and many will watch silently, waiting for you to prove them wrong. But when you let your work do the talking, you rise above the noise. You build credibility, not just visibility. You show, without having to say, that you're not here for attention, but for impact.